I'm a firm believer that social justice is a byproduct of economic empowerment. So we see
Absolutely.
all of these things
Yeah.
happening, police
Right. Right.
brutality and political oppression, but largely because we don't have any leverage.
Right.
They don't
Right.
respect our leverage in society. And that's a perfect segue into the work that you're doing with Black Menswear,
Yes.
how you're
Right.
really reshaping the narrative for young Black men and Black people as a whole. Talk more about why that's important and how that got started.
Nah, and you say perfect segue because you hit on the fact that when we start thinking about group economics and we start thinking about community economic advancement, right? When we look at it from that perspective, all we're trying to do, even from a Black menswear perspective, it's not really about the suits. I use the suit to catch your eye, right? To be like, okay, what's going on over there? Like, what
It
do
looks
y'all
good.
have?
I'll tell you that.
Because no, appreciate it. And so but we use that. That's our leverage, right? To even have a conversation. You got 200 brothers out here dressed in suits. What y'all got going on? Oh, well, let me tell you, it's more than just the suits. It's the camaraderie. It's the networking. It's the breaking down of stereotypes. It's the positivity.
What's up, ShineHard family? You're tuned into a season 7 episode of ShineHard Conversations, where we sit down with thought leaders to unify and mobilize the next generation of Black wealth builders. At the ShineHard family, you guys know our mission is to close the racial wealth gap, and we do that by helping you, me, us, Black Americans discover the wealth that we already possess. Our Legacy Accelerator is dropping this summer. It's something that you definitely should know about if you are looking for an infrastructure to build wealth so you can create a better future for yourself, for your family, get out of debt, increase your net worth. Definitely check that out. We have a tribe of movers and shakers that are in that community and looking to help us reach our goal of increasing the net worth of 500 Black Americans by 20 million by the year 2025. So tap in with that. Today, I'm here with a cultural influencer, Mr. NéAndré Broussard, who is the founder of Black Menswear and also a life insurance guru. I'm happy to have him here today. He's a husband, he's a father, and he's a Black man who's really leading the way for the next generation. NéAndré, how you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm doing well, Johnny, man. Appreciate you having me on. And what's up, everybody in the ShineHeart family?
Cool, man. I'm really, really happy to have you, man. So today, I think you're a perfect guest to deep dive into group economics, visibility, and leaving a legacy. So without further ado, it's time to shine. Let's talk about our background. I think passionate people, successful people come from all socioeconomic levels. Um, but what we've been through can tell us a lot about who we are. So just to start, tell us more about what growing up was like for you, and how was money a part of your family dynamic growing up?
Man, so I am a military brat. So, I grew up, my dad was in the Marines. We moved around a lot of times. Um, we, even from that kind of adapting to different environments, living in the US, living outside the US, living in, the South, living on the West Coast, things varied. Um, and having that stability though of my father, military structure, this is the time that we wake up, this is the time that we go to bed, this is the time that we eat. There's no variance in that. It's the same every day, right? It was, when I look back on it now, it's actually a pretty good thing. And then you have the balance of my dad with my mom, who's like serial entrepreneur. So my
Mm,
mom was, she over that time, because obviously leaving, my dad getting orders and us moving, for her to have a steady, consistent job at that, like a job to go into, it was hard because we would
mm,
every 6 to 12 months we would be relocated somewhere.
mm,
So my mom was a serial entrepreneur. Hair and real estate were her lanes, right? So she everywhere we went, she was able to open up a salon, get clients there, and then if we had to move again, it was cool. She could kind of pick up, go a new place, network, get new clients, right?
Yeah, she had like
And
the
then she started
blueprint,
diving.
and then she had the capital from like your dad
Exactly.
who had the stable income, so she was able to just like plug this
Right.
process in new cities.
Right. Right. And from that, then once my dad retired, I was 10. So my dad retired when I was 10 for the military. Now he's got that steady retirement income coming from the military. And then he goes into the school district and into the ministry. Right. So again, consistency on his position. He leaves one job that's super consistent. He goes into the school district, which is super consistent. And then adding, the ministry on top of that, there was not a lot of flexibility or varying in his schedule. He had something that methodical,
Yeah.
meticulous. Every day it's broken down this way. Then my
So was
mom
it
gets
like a
into real
traditional
estate.
structure where, your dad was the provider, paid all the bills, and then your mom was kind of
Sure.
like, she had her hustles, but she was more responsible for the family and the house? Is that how it was?
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. My family, even kind of in that conversation, we didn't talk a lot about um we didn't have a lot to talk a lot about, saving a whole bunch of money and using a whole bunch of money to go here and there. It was, this is, your bills need to fall within these parameters, right? You need to work to afford to pay your bills. And as a husband, my dad always taught me, as a husband, you have to discipline your household to where all of the bills fall within your paycheck, right?
Mm.
To where anything outside of that, really being that provider. So if we're looking at, the mortgage, the education expenses, the vehicles, all of that needs to fit within one house, one income.
Mm.
And then anything that we have on top of that is gravy. So if my mom brings in additional money, then that's just maybe room for us to enjoy something. Maybe we do go take a road trip. Maybe we do go to SeaWorld, or maybe we do go to Disneyland based off of the money that she has brought into the household. But all bills were paid by my dad's salary. And that
Mm.
was
And
something
that's
that
much
he,
different than today's, well, some of today's
yeah,
uh, psychology or approach to relationships where Black women, for a number of different reasons, we're not even going to dive into that rabbit hole, they have had to kind of hold it down for the
for
households,
sure,
right?
for
They've
sure,
had to
for sure.
become the breadwinners and high earners. And so now single Black women are feeling like, well, I make six figures, right? And I have this stable career and I'm meeting a man. You need to have six figures or more so that you can still be the provider for me. And that becomes like this weird, this very challenging dynamic where like
Yeah,
Black men have their own level of oppression and hurdles to overcome that we can't be that for every woman, right?
yeah.
And so,
I
what's
think,
your
well,
thoughts?
I think around that though, right? Marriage is, to the state, marriage is a business decision, right? Because from the state's perspective, if you're married in, communal states or anything like that, if you're married and you get divorced, that's a business decision because now half of your stuff is split, right? But I think what's even greater than that is the love between the husband and wife, to where I don't care how much money you make, I don't care how much money I make. Um, we're gonna do what's best for us and not what's best for your pocket and what's best for my pocket. Because if you go into it thinking about, okay, well, I make this, or I make that, you're already at a spot where it's tough to come together and compromise on that because you're focused on the I make. And so kind of thinking about that, even to that extent, I mean, when we started off, my wife and I dating 10 years ago, she was already kind of a little bit more ahead of where I was. But that was her understanding that, but then not holding that over my head, because one of the issues that happens with that, and it's not, unfortunately, I can't go in and say, well, if you do this, you'll fix it and all will be right. But, as a man, we've internalized more pressure just to be the provider, right? And so if there's tension that lies in it because um, the breadwinner of that household, just because you're the breadwinner doesn't mean you have to be the provider, if that makes sense, right? You can earn more money, but at the end of the day, you still rely on the husband in that dynamic to be the protector, right? To be the one that you can be comfortable with him making the last decision, right? And so even kind of when it comes down to the breaking down that particular dynamic, I think that yes, there is, this difference, and I mean, I'm all for it, right? Right. Even right now, we got two incomes, but even kind of how we've based it in my household is, even though we have two incomes and my wife makes a good amount of money, what we do from a monthly bills perspective is still designed to come out of what I make. And if I don't make it, if it doesn't come within my salary, if I don't make it, then we make a decision not to get that. Now, once we have enough money kind of saved away, then we can kind of like make larger purchases based on, okay, we saved up to it versus, okay, now we're just adding to monthly expenses. And now things are getting tighter because we're still kind of focused on having that balance, because that allows
Yeah.
us to save for retirement. That allows us to save for future income. That allows us to save for legacy play, legacy benefits, because we focused on taking care of our expenses, but then we also focused on living as a unit
Yeah.
together, right?
Well,
And how
are
we can
you and
balance
your
that out.
wife both W-2, or are you guys 1099 entrepreneur?
No, we're both W-2, right? So
Okay.
we're both W-2, but then I have, my entrepreneurial endeavors that are taking off.
Right.
But she is strictly W-2.
Gotcha. And that kind of reminds me of my situation with my lady, and as a family, we have a daughter, and she's a high earner, but it took me a minute to get here because when I met her, she had that W-2 stable income, and I was like, I had just left Nike, had no income. I was totally like couch surfing, trying to like sell the dream. Like, look, I'm gonna figure this
Yeah,
out. Stick with me.
yeah.
She believed in me. She invested in me, and it like just over the last year or so, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna pay all the bills now. Like I pay the rent, I pay all the utilities, all the like I pretty much pay everything. And now she has like all this money that she makes to herself. But for me, the biggest fear was like, what are you gonna do with all that money? You know, like
Yeah.
so with that question, back to like your upbringing with your dad, who had that regiment and that discipline, kind of the vision for the family. Was he sitting down with you all and saying, okay, here are our family values, or here's our philosophy on money? Were those conversations being had, or do you have those conversations now?
Family values, absolutely. But again, because we didn't have such an abundance of money, there were other conversations to be had, right? And even to now, to this point that they allow me to kind of put me on a foundation to where, we always want our kids to do better than we did, right? And so from an economic perspective, they pushed me to where I am today, where it was, this is why we want you to go to college. This is why we believe that it's going to be better for you, and this is why we're going to support you in doing that. Those are conversations that we did have, right? But it was unfortunate that we weren't in a position to have a conversation about, hey, this is what a trust fund is, this is what yours looks like, right? Or hey, this is what a life insurance policy is that we've already got on you, and it already has $40,000 of cash value built into it that I'm giving to you. We didn't have those kind of conversations because we weren't in a position to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have conversations based on the environments that you're in. And so unfortunately we weren't in that space, but it was always a conversation of, you take care of your household, you make sure that your wife and your children feel loved and feel respected. You make sure that they don't need for anything because you find a way to provide for it, right? So those are conversations that we had, which in itself is a cycle that has to be broken, because we have to start thinking about advancing versus just taking care of
Right.
curating what we currently have.
It seems like
But
financial security has been the level of aspiration for Black Americans for far too long. Like financial dignity, like I think it's 4 stages of like financial wellness. It's financial dignity, financial security, financial independence, and then financial abundance. And so we, as Black Americans on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, are so focused on survival because of the environment that we grow up in. We're like, dignity, can I just get a job to pay my bills? To security, can I just like have enough money at the end of the month? And then I'm like, okay, we made it. We got the good job. We're stable. Woo, Black family success. But like you said, we have to get past just like doing just, enough.
Right. And that's it. And again, kind of bringing it full circle to where, I've shown my sons their life insurance policy, right? They see it on the app and they're like, hey, I got that much money. Yeah, you got that much money. Just keep growing, and that money's going to get bigger. because, we focus, from our perspective, I do use cash value life insurance for them, right? They're young, it's super cheap. So I'm going to pay way above what I have to pay to have extra money that goes in that policy that grows based off of indexes and grows accumulation that they can then tap into tax-free. And so my perspective around that, because I couldn't have those conversations, because my parents didn't have those conversations with me, but then now I'm telling my dad what I'm doing and he's super proud. You know what I mean? To be able to have us in the stage of abundance to where, we don't need for anything. We can basically afford everything that we want to. And if we can't, you give us a quarter and we'll be able to, to save up the money and kind of get to it. Right.
Yeah.
But being able to do that and now instilling that in my sons at an early age. I mean, again, they're 5 and 6. They know. And I had to start telling them, my oldest son, like, bro, you can't just be going around telling people you got thousands of dollars.
That's the next family value. Like, don't everybody even know all your business, son.
But even in that, like, again, just them understanding, hey, we're using this and this is gonna save for you, for your income. I'm sorry, for your retirement. Like, I'm already saving for your retirement now. I'm already saving for your college now. I'm already saving for whatever life's issues might come up with for your life now. As long as you do what you're supposed to do, as long as you stay on track, I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep showing you, like, yeah, this is your money. Your money is growing, right?
Yeah.
So that way
I'm having those same conversations.
Yeah.
Like my daughter, she's 2 years old. We have that 529 account that I've been stacking up, and then I have this app called Stockpile it's like for kids, and it's like a custodial account where you can receive gifts. So I always tell like family members, don't buy this little bear that we're not ever going to use. Like, you put something in her 529, put something in her Stockpile, and that'll be much appreciated. And if she does, I have been showing her my Robinhood account, so she knows stock.
Yeah, right.
She sees money. Money. I'm like, I feel a little awkward. As Black people, we're always like, don't worship money. But it's like, we need to break that chain, like break that cycle of like money being a bad thing, because it really it's energy, right?
It is, and I think one thing that we do is, we have fine lines for everything, right? And so there's kind of like this fine line of having money and then worshiping money, right? At the end of the day, money does make the world go round, right? Even from a biblical perspective. I mean, wherever your faith lies, you still know that this world is not mine, and I'm living in this world. Your light's gonna get cut off if you don't have money. Period. Like, there's a saying like, hey, you can pray for the lights to come on all you want, but until you go work and pay that light bill, God is not gonna give you that blessing, because the man that don't work don't eat. Like, that's like there's those things around it, right? And so not worshiping the concept of having money and making money change you who you are as a person, but understanding the value of what that means to your life. And I say this too, man, even the peace that you have when you've paid all your bills and you have savings and you have investments and I remember, I can tell you the moment where me and my household, where we clicked. I mean, we were frustrated. We were just married. 6 months after we got married, we got pregnant. And so we go from, and I think at that time too, I was probably making, my base salary probably like 35,000. She had just graduated law school. So we had law school debt. And she getting ready to go into, to work for us. And so we went from dating, happy, married, bills. Because 6 months after that, we got pregnant. So medical expenses in your first year of marriage. Then it's like, oh snap! Like, where's this? Even with the job having a deductible, you got to hit the deductible before the rest of it. They start paying all the rest of stuff. So it's like, then we got to pay $5,000 to the hospital, before the medical kicks in, right?
And we're not going to talk about maternity leave, where she probably wasn't even getting paid, compensated while she was out.
And so it was a lot going on at that time, right? And so our first 3 years, and then so even at that, bro, as soon as we had the first child, 4 months later, we was pregnant with a second one, and it was like, oh shoot. And so at that point, we was in a 2-bedroom apartment. Already had, it was already overflowing with stuff. Now that we
started out on a steep
out of the
incline.
crib, man, and 3 years. It took us 3 years to level set, right? 3 years to say, all right, let me understand this, taking a loan against my 401k to pay off credit card debt, right? To say, shoot, I would rather pay 5% back to my 401k versus paying 25% to these credit card companies because everything I'm paying is not going nowhere, right? I had to take a better understanding of how do we get out of this situation. And man, I remember it was, we bought the house, in debt, but we need more spaces. But I'd rather pay, $1,200 a month in a mortgage that I'm investing in my own equity versus paying $1,300 in an apartment that's going to somebody else. So I took that decision of save all the money that we have so we can buy a house versus just throwing it down the drain for an apartment. And so like all of those kind of things came in too. And then when we had that moment of relief, bro, it was crazy. Like the argument stopped, the frustration stopped because that weight was lifted because we got out of that first. And that was just the first level of debt, right? That was just, let's just get out of this credit card debt. We know we got student loans, we got the other stuff, we got our utilities, all this stuff. But this is what's the frustrating, because this is what's taking $900 a month to pay a $2,000 credit card bill because all this interest, you know what I mean? Like all this interest and stuff that's racked up on top of it. So getting out of that and the peace that came with that, because we took the time to focus on that. And then that started the upward trajectory on finance, like having money that we can save and use and play. Excuse me, I said 3 years, it was 5 years. 5 years from marriage. It was once we got past that point, then it was like, all right, now we've been married 8 years, 12 years together. Like now things are,
and that's a beautiful thing because going into it with such an uphill battle and then climbing that mountain together and now being at the peak together, you have a greater respect for one another. You have a greater trust in one another. And I'm sure that made your marriage probably much stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, getting through hard times together. Because at that point, it was everything was a big deal at that point, right? Just because you had this tension of, because especially don't ask me, can I buy this or can we do this? Where are we going to get the money from? You know what I'm saying? So then it's like.
Well, that's a perfect segue into entrepreneurship, right? You wear two hats right now. You're a life insurance agent, and you're also a founder of an incredible movement, Black Menswear. Tell us a little bit about those two, roles that you have. Add more color and why you're passionate about your work.
Yeah. So from the financial perspective, for the financial services world, so I actually serve as a regional wholesaler for life insurance companies. So I show agents how to properly position different solutions for clients versus just focusing on dying to use your life insurance, right? And so with that, the beautiful thing that I love about that is that I'm able to go and help agents to be more successful at impacting the community versus just showing them how to be good salespeople. Because that's the importance of what we do when we think about the life insurance industry, something that's consistently growing. That's one industry that's grown every year, basically, since it started.
Really?
Because as more people find out about life insurance, the more people find out about the differences of life insurance and the different types of life insurance and the different IRS codes that benefit tax deferred and tax free access through life insurance. As more people get acclimated to it, the industry just continues to have this upward trajectory, right? And then you have opportunities where I'm able to go in, really help change an entire community because I show new agents, say, hey, don't go into it thinking about like that. Do not go into life insurance thinking about offering somebody something to put them in the ground. If you're doing it that way, then they're looking at that as a liability. Let me show you how they can see their life insurance policy or this life insurance perspective as an asset. And once they understand it as an asset, then they're going to say, oh yeah, why wouldn't I put my money in there kind of as on top of my savings, right? To contribute to this future growth or this future income or this future access to money. If I get sick along the way, I can tap into my life insurance death benefit while I'm alive, right? So I help them focus on the life in life insurance and the living part of life insurance. And that helps, especially our community, to really thrive because now we don't think about, let me not just go get a $25,000 policy to put myself in the ground. That's not going to benefit your family at all. You still have a mortgage that you're going to leave them with. You still have credit card debt that's going to find some way somehow to give back to them. You still have income replacement. That's a big thing that people don't think about when they think about buying life insurance. If you're making money that you're bringing into your house, your family's going to need 10 years of replacement for that when you die. So how can we make sure that our policy is going to cover 10 years worth of income replacement? Because a lot of times what happened, people get that one big check that was, it may have been enough just for the house. So they pay the house off, but now all the rest of the bills are not being afforded, they're not able to afford because your income is out of the equation. And so while you knocked off one piece of the puzzle, they're still going to likely find themselves within debt because that money that you had coming into the household is no longer coming. And so that's kind of like
I'm a prime example of that story that you just told, where my dad had life insurance policy for about 25,000, and it was enough to, put him in the ground, give him a decent burial, and have a little extra pocket change. But he also left me a mortgage. So now I moved my grandmother in there, but now I'm paying basically my rent and her mortgage. That happens, right? So it's like, I want to keep the house, but you've created a liability for now I have a daughter who that could be going towards something. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And then that's an even greater picture, because if somebody, we know about all this gentrification and everything, right? And so if somebody's got a mortgage on a house that they're like, dang, this is a family house, this is a legacy, but shoot, I can't afford it, and somebody comes to offer me a check for it, they're gonna sell the house. And now you don't have this ownership anymore because you just sold it to get access to the money because you probably needed it. And that's not a bad thing, but it's because we don't, our steps towards leaving that legacy aren't necessarily in play there, right? So, that's why I'm passionate on that side of the house. And then you bring that entrepreneurship. And the great thing about that's entrepreneurship in itself, because, within my own region, I have to recruit my own independent agencies. I have to train them. I have to track their sales, right? I have to make sure that their sales are hitting particular numbers, so that way I make sure I get paid. Because if my region does zero, my kid's not eating. so making, even within that, the passion behind that and growing that. But again, it comes back to my passion for people as to how I'm able to grow that, because I don't even come in, the same way that other wholesalers come into the equation talking about, hey, this is the product that I have to offer. I come in specifically focusing on if we can get clients to change their mindset from thinking a life insurance policy as a liability and think of it as an asset, the sales are going to come, period.
Do you see a disparity between Black Americans and white Americans in terms of who owns and purchases life insurance?
Man, it's crazy, because actually the actual ratio of it, more Black Americans own life insurance. Now, and from percentages, right? From the percentages of the community, there's a greater percentage of Black Americans.
Because there's like 40 million Black Americans in US, and then there's 220 white Americans.
Correct. Now, but the thing about it is, though, even as it relates to the percentages, like I think 38, 39% of Black families have a type of life insurance. What's wrong with it, though, is the majority of them have burial coverage or something that's not going to pass on any value to their beneficiaries, right? So that's the difference in the types of life insurance that our community is getting and other communities are getting. Now, the reason behind that, though, I mean, when you go back to the history of the life insurance industry, there were discriminatory practices that didn't allow for Black families to get access to these larger cash value type of policies. There was a time where we can only get burial insurance. We can only get final expense insurance. That was the only thing that was allowed for us to get, right?
They don't talk enough about that.
And so when you think about the discriminatory practices, and that's why Black people, even to this day, like a lot of Black people still don't trust life insurance. They're like, why? I don't know, say like I'll put my money in it or whatever, they're not gonna do this because of that history, right? Even though now we all have access to the same type of policies, the same type of, growth and those kind of things. We have to overcome that challenge. Exactly. We have to overcome that trauma in order to feel comfortable with me putting in $100 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month, thinking about the future value of that, not just thinking about, okay, if I put in this $100 a month, this is going to be 25,000 when I die. And I'm just going to blow the other money that I have every month because I'm going to do something to kind of enjoy it now. So thinking about how we can break that mold, because that's going to be what takes our community to the next level. If I died and I had $1 million policy, that $1 million is going back into the Black community, right? It's going back into my family. It's probably going to pay that house off. It's going to allow my family to then say, you know what? We can now breathe easy. We now have equity. We now have, go ahead and start that business, son. We got the money for it. We have the resource for it. And so I think that whole, it again, trauma to overcome, and we're overcoming it, but there's still a lot of trauma to overcome when it comes to that, that can then get us on that path of understanding the different kinds of life insurance and understanding what it can actually do. Even for me using it as a cash value play to grow the cash. And in 15 years, if I want to buy a business, I got access to some money that's grown that I can access and take a loan against tax free, right?
So really,
Me
really
just putting
quickly,
in compounding.
how does that work? Like, how does the cash value life insurance work in a nutshell?
So, all right, you put in $100 into your policy, hypothetical. Like these are hypothetical numbers. You got $1 million policy, costs you $100 a month. This $100 a month, a portion of that goes towards paying for that $1 million death benefit, right? So, and this concept is more geared toward, again, cash value life insurance. I spend a lot of my time in index universal life, also whole life policies, as well as fixed universal life. They all work the same way. So you put $100 in. Let's say $40 goes towards paying for that $1 million coverage, right? The other $60 is going into an account that's growing, compounding, tax deferred. Now that money is growing, either if it's a whole life, is growing based off of dividends. So however well that whole life company does that year, they'll declare a dividend and say, okay, all of our clients are getting 5.5% this year. So then they'll automatically put that 5.5% that's going for that remaining amount of money that's still in the policy is going to grow that.
So you're compounding.
You're compounding every year based on what it is. Last year, you got the interest earned, and then boom, your money moves up. And then the next year, same thing, right? Money is declared, and if it's in like an IUL, it's going based off of indexes. If that index does 8% that year, then your policy is going to grow. That cash value that's remaining in there will grow by 8%.
So after 10 years, let's say I have $100,000 in this account, cash value, and it's a $1 million policy. What are my options with that cash?
So with that cash, you can have a number of different options. So one thing that you can do is I always go take loans against your policy and not withdrawals. I say loans because if I take a loan, let's say, Johnny, let's say me and you, we like, you know what, let's go ahead and cop this Endeavor next year and say, okay, it's $50,000 for us to buy it. I take $25,000 loan against my life insurance policy. You take a $25,000 loan against your life insurance policy. We got 50 racks. We go buy the business. That $25,000 is technically still in your policy. It's just a loan against the policy to where if you don't pay it off, they're just going to subtract it from your death benefit, right?
Correct.
Or we can recycle it. That business hits, we take our initial $25,000 investment back out of the business to pay ourselves back. That we can put back into our life insurance policy. To add on some interest on that, right, to get that loan, but then you're able to recycle that money. So then I can become my own bank and say, okay, well, should I put that 25 back? Plus I pay premiums on a monthly basis, so the money is still growing, right?
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about life insurance, and it's according to IRS code 7702. IRS code 7702 dictates the fact that you can actually tap into your cash value, take a loan against your policy, and not pay taxes on the growth.
Wow.
There's an IRS code around that allows you to grow your money in your life insurance policy, take a loan against that policy, and not have to pay capital gains taxes because it's still within the life insurance protection.
If you take a loan out against it, you don't pay capital gains tax. But if you pull out that actual cash, then you would have to be.
If you do the withdrawal route, yes. So that's why I said I always recommend taking the loan against the policy versus the withdrawal. If I do
that concept in itself is really the approach of the wealthy. They don't cash out their assets. They build up their assets, they store their value, and then they take out loans to create more money for cheap to create more money, right? And so having an asset is you can't put a value on having assets in the capitalistic society because that is the power of the whole economy.
It's the leverage. It's the leverage, right? That's the big word. Do you have leverage? You can't go to the bank and get without leverage, right? You can't get anything without leverage. And so, looking at it from that perspective of then now my life insurance policy becomes additional leverage for me, right?
And you know what the enemy of leverage is? In your opinion, I'll ask you first before I give my thought. What do you feel like is the enemy of leverage?
Shoot, I was about to do the quick fire. I was about to say being broke because that
in essence, that is the destination. That is the opposite of leverage. But I was going to say consumerism will lead you to being broke, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because you spending all day. And that's a great point. And again, when you think about spending and you think about saving, If you feel as though what you're spending towards is a saving, then you're going to be more likely to spend towards that. And that's like, again, I come back to this thing about if I view life insurance as an asset and not a liability, right? If I'm saving my money in my life insurance policy, and I'm not saying people should take all their money out of all these different places and put everything in the policy. No, it's a way to balance out your portfolio. You have stocks, you have savings accounts, you have investment accounts, you have a life insurance policy, and all of them grow and they work differently, but they all balance out your portfolio. That life insurance is going to be the aspect of your policy that never loses value, right? Because life insurance policies are guaranteed. They basically have guarantees set in them to where as long as your policy doesn't blow up, you should have consistent growth over 5, 10, 15, 20-year period. So that just gives you that. Then you have the market that does this and that, right? As the market fluctuates, you have something that just kind of provides that balance there. So yeah, the leverage component of it, it's a huge play that's often overlooked because we often look at life insurance as just saying, all right, if I die, it's gonna put me in the ground, and then y'all gonna have to fend for yourselves at that point. It's like, nah,
Right.
let me overdo it. Let me give y'all so much money that y'all don't have to spend, you know what I'm saying, or fend for yourselves. And it's easiest to get that way. It's easiest to do that if you start young before we start having a lot of medical problems, right? Because then it gets more expensive, and then it does become even more of a balance of how much should I get? Can I afford to put this amount of money in there? And then even too, like that'll be even a deeper situation, right? Because I see communities outside of ours that basically do group funding for their life insurance policies on their older family members. So a whole Asian family will come together and say, all right, you're the oldest. We love you. We know you're going to die. So all of us are going to put money together to buy you a $2 million life insurance policy that we're going to bank on that money when you die in the next 3 to 5 years. Even though they know their premium is going to be high, right? Because the person is older. So it's like, all right, well, to get you this policy, we got to pay $10,000 a month. How many of us do we have to split up that $10,000 a month to be able to pay this for the next, again, 3 to 5 to 7 years, but to get this $2 million back, you know, when you die. Yeah.
And that really requires a shift in the aspirational focus of a community, right? Like we have to redefine what we consider to be success. And that's a conversation that we're having so frequently at ShineHard and really in the Black community today, with everyone kind of awakening, is like we have to really decide that we want to create wealth. And if we want to advance and be more competitive and self-sufficient, then we have to store our value. We have to prioritize generational wealth, because I'm a firm believer that social justice is a byproduct of economic empowerment. So we see all of these things happening, police brutality and political oppression, but largely because we don't have any leverage.
Right.
They don't respect our leverage in society. And that's a perfect segue into the work that you're doing with Black Menswear, how you're really reshaping the narrative for young Black men and Black people as a whole. Talk more about why that's important and how that got started.
Nah, and you say perfect segue, because you hit on the fact that when we start thinking about group economics and we start thinking about community economic advancement, right? When we look at it from that perspective, all we're trying to do, even from a Black menswear perspective, it's not really about the suits. I use the suits to catch your eye, right? To be like, okay, what's going on over there? Like what
it looks good. Have? I'll tell you that.
Because no, appreciate it. And so we use that. That's our leverage, right? To even have a conversation. You got 200 brothers out here dressed in suits. What y'all got going on? Oh, well, let me tell you, it's more than just the suits. It's the camaraderie. It's the networking. It's the breaking down of stereotypes. It's the positivity. It's that push of, man, I'm here. I'm a part of something greater. I'm a part of something bigger than me. And then these men go back home into their communities, and they have that mindset of, man, like, okay, I got to keep doing something bigger than me. I was just out here with 200 brothers with no drama, no fussing, no fighting, no nothing, just straight positive energy. I met a doctor. I met a lawyer. I met a barber. I met a dentist. I met a philanthropist. I met a student. There are so many different brothers that come to these events that we have called flash mobs as a part of the Black Menswear movement. And truly, man, the start of Black Menswear was 100% based on how can I really showcase how I feel about myself on a daily basis versus how the media makes me to feel about myself, right? And I say that the eye-opening moment that I had for this was Philadelphia Castile, and and how Philadelphia Castile seemingly was a brother that did everything he was supposed to do, and he still, up until that point, there was always, up until that point, a good lawyer can argue down all of the rest of those cases, right? Oh, well, we couldn't tell what he had because it spun around so quickly and he looked like he had something in his hand. So from that point, right, there was always
ultimately he didn't comply in some
exactly
shape, form, or fashion.
And so with the Philadelphia Castile, that was really the first one where we saw it actually happen live. It was a Facebook Live, and we saw the entire instance, or not the entire, but we saw the immediate aftermath of what happened and the explanation at that point, to where a brother was doing what he was supposed to do. I got a license to carry. I do have a gun on me. I'm just informing you. My right is to inform you. You asked me for my license, even though I'm not driving, but I don't know why you need my license, but I'm gonna go get it for you. I'm reaching for that, and then boom, my life is taken. And then the immediate depiction was, let's try to break this brother down. He had to be doing something wrong. So even from the media's perspective, they looked for some negative energy to build up around this guy. So that way it would make the police officer look that much more like a hero in that particular instance. We got one more criminal off the streets. And like from that perspective, that's when it hit me like, damn, what are they going to say about me if I have a run-in with the police and they're going to go back and find some image of me from back in high school or something, or one of the Facebook parties that I was hosting in college, like something like that. And they're going to turn that into they're going to bring the lighting down on it, make it look a little darker, so it looks like a worse photo, because they do that too, right? They may take a picture that's a bright background, bright sunlight picture. They're going to bring the shade down a little bit, add a little black and white on top of it to take some of that color out there. And then boom, the criminal filter, yes. And then boom, it displays that way. And so as a way for us to combat that, we thought around, how can we use our voice to where the next time somebody Google searches black man, they're not gonna see a mugshot. They're not gonna see someone in handcuffs. They're gonna see brothers that are looking successful, that are looking like they're trying to attain and achieve something else. And that can help shift the narrative. That can help that young black boy that sees himself, but only sees his community and only sees the negative of his community, to say, I don't have to be a product of my environment. I see there are other brothers out there doing it. What do they do to get out? What do they do to get over or get ahead? And then how can I bring that back to my community once I'm a part of that, right? Yeah. That was the focus of Black Menswear. And now we've been able to do that, again, on an ongoing basis where we travel. We got 8 more cities this year where we do our flash mob tour. On these tours, we're traveling. We're bringing out at least 150 brothers per city that are just coming out. And it's building an ecosystem of our own, because we talk about that on site. We talk about, say, hey, I know we all here for these pictures, and I know these pictures are going to go viral. We know it. Every time we do it, they go viral. But the even more important part of this is that all 150 of you guys that took your time out today, this is your ecosystem right here. I'm sure there's an insurance salesman here. I'm sure there's a banker here. I'm sure there's all of the stuff that you need. I'm positive you can find it here. Let's start keeping our dollars here and circulating our dollars within our networks. Yeah. And then we do that in the next city. And then we do that in the next city. And then we do that in the next city.
Yes. Having that professional network of a banker, a legal advisor, center of influence in your industry, a mentor. And so I love that you're advocating for that within those groups.
Yes. Because that's the thing too. I'm in the industry. When I look at the financial services, man, there are times where I go and I've recruited an agency, right? So I've recruited them. I've got, had good conversation with their leadership, and I go into and I start doing the training, and it's like, I'm the only brother in the whole. And but it's like, but y'all are forced to listen to me because I got the resource that you need to be successful, right? But it's disheartening. It was at first, I had to, for me, the suit was like my superhero. I was like, all right, I'm putting my cape on. I'm in the hotel, getting ready to go talk to this agency out here in California, put my tie on. All right, I'm looking myself in the mirror like, okay, but let's go. We ready to go. Like, having to have that confidence and get that confidence for ourselves. But then now again, relaying that and understanding that I don't need to be the only Black anymore. How can I now open the door or advance somebody else to be in that particular stage? Right.
Well, from your experiences as an insurance guru, also a community leader, a national leader, what do you feel like are the greatest needs of Black Americans right now? Is it financial literacy? Is it mentorship, capital, training? self-perception?
I think, man, I think honestly, self-confidence that we're worthy, I think is a big thing, right? And I think it's overlooked when you look at a community perspective, right? Because Black people, we still allow ourselves to live in the poorest communities, right? We still allow ourselves to attend schools that don't have resources. We still allow ourselves to get caught up in a lot of criminal activity based on our environment, right? Not based on, the fact that because I understand all of the criminal activity, right? Again, being in the environment, you get it. If I don't do something, my lights is cut off. So for me, the economic advancement is this is supply and demand. I got the supply. I'm gonna make the money off of it. It's capitalism in its finest. But there are legal ramifications that are tied to what our community tends to utilize to leverage itself, unfortunately, right? Because that's kind of how the system is in play, right? They give you what you need to be criminals, and then they criminalize you for it. And so, looking at it from that perspective, I think that self-confidence that says like, no, we're at the top of the totem pole when you think about it, right? When you think about the group as a whole, you think about the capital that we have access to, we think about our buying power. We're really at the top of the totem pole for one particular subset. Because what they do is they do group all Black people together from an economics perspective. So cool. If they want to do it that way, let's ride on that. Because we got to think $1.4 trillion of buying power, right? But we don't have the confidence in knowing that, hey, I have leverage because I have a community buying power. Yeah. Nike, Google, Apple, all of them market to our communities. And so they're marketing our communities. We just don't understand the value that we have within that. And so I think using that and having that self-confidence, I think is a really great tool. And I think having that self-confidence builds community, which then builds the trickle down of knowledge, the trickle down of education, the trickle down of concept that can then help more of our community attain wealth. I think you get a lot of that when you look at yourself differently to say, because even at that point when I flip that switch, I look at myself differently and say, hey, hold on, why am I struggling? Why is this not working for me? What can I do now that I got that confidence? I know I'm supposed to be in this room and that room and that room. Now that I have that confidence, I'm gonna go get it. Because we're hustlers by nature. We were forced to be hustlers. We have to, right? We have to. We gotta find a way.
110%.
We gotta find a way. Yeah.
110%. And our first module in our Legacy Accelerator is called Design Yourself. And it's totally focusing on self-perception and self-confidence and really reimagining how we see ourselves. And so I think about goals, habits, and values. And those three things will really determine how successful you are, how much wealth you create. And quite frankly, we just don't ever sit down to intentionally say, what are my goals? What are my values in life? What habits will I put in place to get those goals and support those values? And the interesting thing about the universe is it doesn't give us what we want. It gives us the least that we'll accept. So if we're willing to live in the hood and just this is going to be our reality, then that's what we'll continue to get. If you say, I do not want to live like this anymore, and I will do everything I can, spend every waking hour doing what I need to do to leave this environment, then you will have opportunities. The universe will send you vehicles and send you opportunities and send you mentors, and that will help you escape that place. But it really goes into accepting that. And even at ShineHard, we talk about passion, because I believe passion changes everything. And this is a question that I've asked all 150 leaders that I've ever brought onto this platform to say, what is your passion and when did you know?
Honestly, my passion is empowering people. I found that out. I knew it a long time ago. I love bringing out the best in people. I love being that teammate. That's the one that's like, like, you know what I'm saying? I might not have made, the winning bucket. I might not have got the game winning steal. I might not have, caught the touchdown, but I'm the hype man. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be the one that's gonna be like, yo, let's go. Like, we did it, kind of from that perspective. And even within that, like, again, you'll see that's kind of how I found my lane in financial services, right? Because I can help a client to be excited about their future. I can help even now, because that was, initially while I was in sales, when I was an individual salesperson. Then when I became a wholesaler, to where it's like, I'm getting my guys thrilled about hitting their sales goals. I'm showing them a new way to be successful, a new way to impact the community. I'm showing them new ways to provide for their families, right? And so even within that, being their biggest hype man, and I come in and when I get ready and I get able to get back out, like I've been missing being in front of agents physically, not just doing the Zoom meetings. And like that's
Same.
one thing. Like when I come in, they know I'm there. You know what I'm saying? Because I just come with that energy. And then with that, like the passion around people is why I do Black Menswear, because again we've been, and if we leave it up to somebody else to tell our story, they're gonna curate that story in the way that they want it to be curated. And so taking control of that and just giving our positive energy to our brothers, because one thing, Black women are phenomenal. I love Black women. Black women are taken care of. They've got themselves together. They got their units, they got their group, and they're gonna look out for each other. Like men, we behind. You know what I'm saying? Like honestly, we are behind. But a lot of that comes from the fact that they tell us that we can't work together, the fact that they tell us that we're aggressive and we're animalistic, and all these different things that have been so far seeded into us to where we don't even trust each other to start a conversation, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of places you go, and it's gotten better lately, but shoot, that me mug, like I'm a mug you, like, bro, who are you? Who are
Right.
like, I don't know you. What you talking to me for? What you want?
Right. Why are you looking at me?
Right. And so kind of breaking that and just offering this different vein of, yo, we are super positive people. We have no there's no way that we can be negative with all that we've overcome, right? That's how I look at it. We've overcome so much
We're so
generationally.
positive almost to a flaw, bro. Like one thing that kind of kills me sometimes about Black Americans is that we're the only group of people that can be oppressed, enslaved for 250 years and still be cooperative and amicable with the oppressor.
Yeah, right. And that's
crazy.
That's a whole conversation in itself. But like even kind of like my perspective on it, and I look at it like my perspective on it is take care of us, right? If I can help you to feel as though you can achieve the world, I'm gonna let you use your strengths to do that. But at least I helped you turn that light on.
What's your greatest fear?
Man, shoot, my greatest fear is not leaving a legacy. Honestly, like my greatest fear is disappointing Erica and Micah and Noah at the end of the day. Because I know, and the reason why that is, I know if all my endeavors fail, but my kids still look at me and say, Daddy was this, Daddy was that, I've established a foundation, I've left a legacy. Even if from financially, right? Even if financially, bankruptcy, all these kind of things that happen to people, God ain't gonna do that to me, I'm gonna be okay. But looking at it from a perspective of, even if that happens, the legacy that I left outside of my financial decisions, right? Even that legacy can live far beyond me. And like, so my thought around it is, my greatest fear is basically dying and nobody remembers anything that I did. Like at all. Nobody remembers the fact that I tried to change the world. Nobody remembers the fact that I worked a 9 to 5. I worked a 5 to 9, and then I was a baseball coach on the weekends, right? Like, I don't, if nobody remembers the impact or the legacy, that's my greatest fear. And it's less about, I guess it is somewhat about me, but it's less about me and more about what was passed on, to where they will remember it because of what was done, and not to say, oh, NéAndré was such a great person. Nah, NéAndré cared, and NéAndré helped, and NéAndré tried to help people get to that next point. That's my greatest fear.
You just gave me chills, bro, because I feel that so deeply, bro. That resonates with me. I've been thinking that literally since I was probably in high school, when I was just running track, and I thought about what's my legacy. Because I've heard this quote from Brendan Broussard, and it's something I'm paraphrasing, like, when you die and everyone else you know dies, unless you did something very intentional with your time and your resources, it will be as if you never lived.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's your strategy for being here? What do you leave behind? And when I heard that, it struck a chord so deeply in me that every other day after that, I was thinking about, what am I doing to build something that's greater than myself, that can be left behind to show that I existed, to show that
Yeah.
I lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that what you're saying,
Yeah.
bro. And honestly, when I had my daughter, it was a feeling of completion that came over me. A strange sense. I can't own it. I don't know where it came from. It wasn't because of me. It was just like, it was like, almost like part of my journey was ended. Like, it was like, okay, you've put something out in the world that's greater than you, that's going to outlast you.
Yes.
So like part of my job here was like, all right, that level was like completed. It was illuminated.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel old, but I feel good. It's sad and it's beautiful,
Yeah. Right. Right.
But no,
Right.
bro, like that's a beautiful thing, man. I love that you said legacy, and I hope everyone listening will put that feather in their cap and think about doing work or contributions that outlast them. And even if it's just with your own family, that's where it really begins. Your brothers, your sisters, your kids, people in your community is the best place to start. And so as a final question, to leave us with a few gems, what advice do you have for Black Americans to succeed in the 21st century? I know you think about wealth and you think about creating self-confidence and managing our image as a community. What do we need to do? What's our mindset going forward?
I would say one of the biggest things that I would say is community building. Because again, community building is something that if we lift as we climb, we're going to get there a lot more people will get there at the same time, right? There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go longer, go as a unit. And I think really focusing on that community part, because again, we spend so much money outside of our community, right? So much. But I think because we didn't have the resources or leverage before, we didn't have the businesses that allowed for us to, to put money back into our community. Say for, last time we did, they burned the cities down. You know what I'm saying? From Black Wall Street perspectives. And so now that we've developed these units and we have cities like Houston, Atlanta, DC, Detroit, Baltimore, that are heavily African-American and doing well, right? Forget all the stuff that they tell you about the crime in these communities. That's what they're going to hit on. But you look at the success of people that are in these communities as a community, and like those that are actually putting the money in the right places, buying the block, investing as a unit. I think that's a great opportunity for us to grow if we start trusting each other even more, right? And I'm not just saying just go find the first Black person and give them all your money, but vet out opportunities. Get with your people in your circle and have those conversations. Like, okay, you got this going on, you got this going on, I got this going on. How can we bring our expertise together to develop something that we can own? Right? Doesn't have to be major. I'm not saying out the gate you got to have a 7-figure revenue business, but something that, again, looking at the community being together, something that I can support you can support me, and then being intentional about it as well, right? There are some things it's gonna from a time breakdown perspective, it's gonna probably be easier for you to go shop at Walmart for your groceries versus going and driving 35 miles to find the one Black-owned store that doesn't have all the products, right? But if there are certain things that you can say, okay, well, if I'm online and I'm shopping Amazon, I'm gonna go through the Amazon app and find Black-owned businesses because they got it broken down like that for you. If I'm going out to eat, and I say, okay, well, shoot, me going out to eat, that's a decision, especially if it's like date night or something like that. That's a decision I'm making a couple of weeks ahead of time. That's enough time for me to find the restaurant, the one Black-owned steakhouse in the city, or whatever like that, and then put my money back into that. Be intentional about it to at least to an extent, because again, you never know. Our businesses are so well, they're getting out of that, but they've been so closely held that one purchase that you make could be what that business needs to make it from this month to the next month. And so looking at it from that perspective of being more intentional about growing and thriving within the community, I think is what's gonna continue us to move us forward. Because again, coming back to that, when we have the community together, then you have more opportunities that are going to come out of that community. Then you have more access that's going to come out of that community. Then you have more knowledge and more education that's going to come out of that community because they're all going to tap in to the ShineHard fam, right? because they know now this is something that's out there that I can learn from. Instead of them paying Tony Robbins or something like that, they're gonna come and say, let me invest that money into something that is more along the lines of how my community is perceived and what I can do to build and better my community. So that's gonna be, that's gonna be the thing that I leave with. Focus on building the community, using our resources, keeping our resources in house, because we have a lot that we can do for ourselves and self-sustaining. That's not a bad thing, right? Nobody talks about how bad it is that white people buy from white people. Nobody talks about how bad it is that Asians buy from Asians. Nobody talks about how bad it is that Hispanics buy from Hispanics. It ain't bad that black people buy from black people. Nothing wrong with that. And so from my perspective,
that's how it should be.
Tapping into that, that's how, honestly. And so my thing is, being more intentional with that, so that way we can all grow together. I think is what I would leave for the community.
Well said, man. Design yourself, work together, leave a legacy. And when I think about leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And that was said by my virtual mentor, John Maxwell. So NéAndré, I appreciate you coming on, bro. This was an amazing conversation. I think there was a lot of gems and nuggets to pull from and to share with the community. Before I let you go, let everyone know how they can find you online.
I appreciate it. Online, you go to visit us at weareblackmenswear.com. That is WEARE, blackmenswear.com. On social, personal page is Mr. Broussard. The brand page is at Black Menswear. Again, we're coming. If gentlemen are out there, you want to tap into us, we've got 8 cities that we're going to hit, 8 more cities. So we've already been we started the year off in Atlanta. Then we went to Houston. We've got New York in May. We've got Chicago in June. We've got July in Toronto or LA, depending on Toronto will let us into Canada. We've got July. Sorry, that was July. August, we're going to be in Detroit. September, we're going to be in Philadelphia. October, we're going to be in Seattle. November, we're going to go across the world and we're going to go to Paris, France. And then December, we will finish out the year in Miami, Florida. So definitely, gentlemen that are out there that want to tap into the Black Menswear movement, just to be a part of something with us, come out and feel that camaraderie and feel the energy and get rejuvenated to go back to your communities and spread that impact. Definitely, weareblackmenswear.com/flashmob, and you'll see all the details there.
That's incredible. And we didn't even get to talk about how you're monetizing and funding this whole tour of Flash Mobs. That's a whole nother conversation. It sounds like you're doing something right, man. So kudos to you. Y'all make sure y'all tap in with Black Menswear. They have an amazing platform on Instagram and always posting viral content. So definitely check that out. If you like this conversation and you want to learn more about creating wealth for yourself, your family, designing yourself, leaving a legacy, tap into the Legacy Accelerator launching this summer. You can find us at ShineHardFamily.org. Our mission is to increase the net worth of 500 Black Americans by 20 million by the year 2025. It's a very attainable goal. We want you to be a part of that movement. Join the tribe. If you want to connect with me, I'm at Johnny Bailey. You can find ShineHard at ShineHardFamily on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to find this conversation. Appreciate you all. Stay Black, stay woke, and keep shining. See you all next week. Peace.